This is a story that takes you on an emotional roller coaster. Maria, a compassionate nurse, takes in a homeless man named Alonso, thinking she can finally defy her mother's strict expectations. What starts as a simple act of kindness quickly turns into something much deeper as Maria and Alonso grow closer, sharing warmth and love that seemed impossible at first. But just as happiness seems within reach, Maria's mother intervenes, driving a wedge between them with lies and manipulation. Alonso, feeling betrayed, leaves without a word, and Maria is left heartbroken, desperately searching for the man she truly loves. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Maria, a young woman of 24, dragged herself home, burdened by a cloud of frustration and exhaustion. Her new job as a nurse, just a month old, was suffocating her spirit. The sterile, cold environment of the clinic felt like a prison, and each day blurred into the next with the relentless monotony of her tasks. The constant exposure to illness and human suffering weighed heavily on her, draining her of any sense of purpose. To make matters worse, her colleagues were a disheartening bunch obsessed with material wealth. Their conversations revolved around money, luxury, and gifts, devoid of any hint of empathy or humanity. Maria yearned for something more, something meaningful. She longed for the day when she could leave this soul-crushing place behind and find a job where she truly belonged, surrounded by people who valued kindness and compassion as much as she did. That evening, as the chill of late autumn settled in, casting a somber mood over the city, Maria trudged her way home, the gloom in her heart matching the bleakness of the season. The last bus had long since departed, forcing her to take the metro. As she descended the cold, concrete stairs, her eyes fell upon a young man slumped against the wall. His clothes were ragged and dirty, his hand was outstretched in a silent plea for help. His appearance was a stark contrast to the rest of the bustling crowd that hurried past him, indifferent to his plight. Maria's heart ached with a deep, unspoken empathy. She knew poverty all too well, having grown up in a fatherless household. Her mother had worked tirelessly at 3 jobs just to make ends meet. But it wasn't just the man's desperate situation that tugged at her heartstrings. Something about him struck a chord within her. As she moved closer, the dim light of the metro revealed his face more clearly, and she was startled by the familiarity of his features. For a fleeting moment, Maria was transported back to a painful chapter of her life. The man bore an uncanny resemblance to Martinez, her ex-boyfriend, the man she had loved so deeply, and whose absence still left a void in her heart. Martinez had been the love of her life, but their relationship had ended in heartbreak. Her mother had disapproved, steering them apart, despite Maria's protests. Now, standing in front of this stranger, who looked so much like the man she had lost, Maria's heart raced with a whirlwind of emotions. The young man, who seemed just as broken as her memories, glanced up briefly before lowering his gaze in what Maria imagined was a shame. Could this be him? Could fate be so cruel as to bring him back into her life like this? 1,000 thoughts swirled in her mind, but one thing was clear: she couldn't just walk away. Fighting back tears, her voice trembled as she spoke. "Martinez, is that you? I can't believe it. I've missed you so much." The words slipped out before she could stop them, a mix of shock, hope, and lingering affection flooding her heart. The man's response was a crushing disappointment to Maria's heart. "You're mistaken, unfortunately. I'm Alonso," he said, his voice barely a whisper as he turned away. His dejection was palpable, and it struck a chord deep within Maria. She gazed at Alonso, her mind racing with a daring, albeit ludicrous, idea. What if she took him home and told her mother that he was her fiancé? Perhaps that would put an end to her mother's relentless interference in her romantic life and force her to stop setting her sights on unsuitable suitors. The absurdity of the notion wasn't lost on Maria. The chaos it would bring to her household was all too apparent. Yet today had been an exceptionally difficult day. and the frustration that weighed on her made the outlandish plan seem oddly appealing. Driven by a sudden burst of rebellious energy, she bought a coffee and some cookies and handed them to Alonso. He accepted them with a grateful but embarrassed nod, quickly devouring the treats as though they were a rare feast. Maria, her curiosity piqued by the man's sad plight, asked, "How did you end up in this situation? Why aren't you working or staying somewhere stable?" Alonso's response came wrapped in layers of shame and resignation. "I've had a rough life that I'd rather not delve into. My mother drank heavily, and my stepfather. He brought me here, gave me a severe beating, and then threw me out. Now, I'm left to wander, without any papers. I can't secure a job. I find places to sleep wherever I can, sometimes in the train station or near a heating pipe." The depth of Alonso's hardship struck Maria with an overwhelming surge of empathy. Her heart ached for him, and before she could overthink it, she blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "Come with me. I'll get you clean clothes and a place to stay. There's just one condition. I need to tell my mother you're my fiancé. It's the only way she'll accept you and let me help you. You'll be part of this little deception with me. If you don't like it or want to leave, you're free to go at any time, no questions asked. Help me, please. I'm exhausted from dealing with my mother. She's always dreaming of bringing home some millionaire on a white horse, and it's driving me crazy." Maria's proposition was a mixture of desperation and defiance, a reflection of her exhaustion from battling her mother's incessant expectations and her longing for peace. The stranger hesitated, his eyes reflecting a mixture of doubt and cold. After a moment he said, "So, you've chosen to bring home a beggar to get under your mother's skin? Honestly, it's not the most brilliant idea, but you've shown great kindness and I appreciate it. Given how cold I am out here, I think I'll accept your offer. At least I'll be warm." Maria's face lit up with a newfound warmth and hope, her whole demeanor brightening. Driven by her emotions, she lived for the moments when her actions could make a difference. She had never dreamed of marrying into wealth or securing a life of luxury. Instead, she valued love and mutual understanding above all else. If this was her destiny, she resolved to face it head-on, even if it meant confronting her mother with a dramatic change. With determination, she took Alonso's arm, guiding him with a sense of purpose toward what she hoped would be a brighter future. However, Maria's mother was not prepared for this unexpected turn of events. For years, she had struggled with hypertension and had endured a heart attack, with doctors advising her that a valve replacement surgery was crucial. But where would the money come from? Sarah's life had been a struggle, with meager earnings barely covering the essentials. Her one dream was to see her daughter find happiness and financial security, a dream that had been marred by her difficult past. Sarah had once been deeply in love, only to be abandoned by a fiancé, left her alone and pregnant. Her ideal vision of a fulfilled life was seeing Maria surrounded by affluence and a successful husband, allowing Sarah to rest easy knowing her daughter was well cared for. Upon seeing the disheveled Alonso, Sarah's shock was palpable. The sight of him in his filthy clothes and unkempt hair was a stark contrast to her aspirations for her daughter. Her face shifted through a spectrum of emotions from disbelief to frustration as she processed the reality of the situation. Maria, striving to stay composed, made the introductions with a calm determination. "Mom, this is Alonso, my fiancé. We're moving in together. He doesn't have anywhere else to go, do you mind?" Turning to Alonso with a cheerful, albeit strained, smile, Maria said, "Come in, Alonso. Don't be shy, make yourself at home. But remember, you're a guest here." Despite the tension, Maria's hopeful resolve shone through as she welcomed Alonso into her world, determined to carve out a place for him, despite the hurdles and uncertainties that lay ahead. "Oh my God, Maria, when are you going to stop bringing home every stray you find? This is supposed to be a respectable apartment. not a refuge for the homeless, Sarah lamented, her frustration bubbling over. With a heavy sigh, she retreated to her room, her disappointment evident. Maria, undeterred by her mother's harsh words, set about making the best of the situation. She prepared a comforting meal of potatoes and mushrooms, and she and Alonso shared a warm, hearty dinner. Afterward, she guided him to the bathroom, where she helped him strip off his filthy clothes and put them in the washing machine. She then led him to his new room, saying, "You'll be sleeping on the floor next to me. I'll set up a bed for you." Alonso relished the hot shower and the sensation of clean sheets against his skin. As he marveled at these simple pleasures, he reflected on how much he had come to value them. Who would have thought he'd find himself here, experiencing such kindness and comfort? With genuine gratitude in his eyes, he looked at Maria and said, "Thank you so much, truly. Good night." Adjusting quickly to his new role as a guest, Alonso found solace in Maria's warm demeanor. Her kindness and the genuine affection she showed made his transition smoother. Maria, for her part, was not only pleasant but also striking in her way, with her radiant smile and cheerful nature. They spent considerable time together, chatting about everything under the sun. Alonso, eager to contribute, helped around the apartment repairing clotheslines, adjusting kitchen cabinets, and fixing wobbly chairs. Maria's mood lightened noticeably, knowing she could return home to find Alonso waiting for her. One evening, while they were cozied up watching a TV show and engaged in their usual deep conversation, an unexpected turn of events brought a new level of intimacy. Suddenly, Maria winced in pain and let out a cry of distress. Alonso's concern was immediate. He rushed to her side, his face etched with worry. "Maria, what's wrong? Are you in pain? What happened?" Maria, clutching her leg in agony, managed to explain through her discomfort. "I have a cramp. It's probably from the long hours at work." As the pain in Maria's leg began to fade, Alonso took the opportunity to soothe her further. With a tender touch, he started massaging her foot, then moved to the other and gently worked on her calves. The relief was almost immediate, and Maria couldn't help but express her gratitude. "I feel so much better now. The cramp has completely disappeared," she said, her voice filled with relief. With a growing sense of intimacy, Alonso inched closer to Maria, his movements slow and deliberate. He began to kiss her with a blend of tenderness and skill that spoke volumes of his deepening feelings. Maria, initially taken aback, tried to regain her composure. "Alonso, what are you doing?" "We're only pretending to be engaged," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of confusion and apprehension. But Alonso's response was calm and heartfelt. "That's enough," he murmured, continuing his gentle caress. "At first I thought it was all just a game, but I've genuinely fallen in love with you. Maria, I want you more than anything. You're extraordinary, unlike anyone I've ever met. If you truly want me to go, just say the word, and I'll leave immediately." It was too late for Maria. Her emotions had overwhelmed her, and they both succumbed to a passionate connection that consumed them entirely. The world outside seemed to fade away as they lost themselves in each other. In their shared euphoria, the disapproval of Maria's mother seemed insignificant. Alonso's love for Maria was profound, and he envisioned a future with her that filled him with joy. Maria, in turn, felt she had finally discovered her true happiness. Despite this newfound joy, Maria struggled to persuade her mother that Alonso was the man who would bring her fulfillment. However, her mother remained unyielding. "What are you doing? What future do you see with a drifter who has no papers, no job, and no prospects?" Sarah wrestled with her guilt, knowing she was betraying both her daughter and Alonso by deceitfully trying to undermine their relationship. Yet, her obsession with finding a wealthy suitor for Maria continued to overshadow her better judgment. Alonso, undeterred by the constant negativity, continued to assist around the house, caring for Sarah and trying to make the best of the situation. Despite his efforts, Sarah's hostility persisted. She made every attempt to belittle and offend him, trying to drive him away. When Alonso remained steadfast and did not leave after a week, Sarah decided to escalate her tactics. While Maria was at work, she confronted Alonso with a fierce, angry determination. "Listen up, you lowlife. Maria is an emotional girl who acts on impulse. She's just having fun with you. She has a fiancé who's currently abroad. When he returns, he'll make sure to deal with both of you. If you want to stay alive, you'd better leave now. If you don't leave today, I'll call Maria's fiancé and tell him everything about you too." Sarah's harsh words struck Alonso like a cruel blow. He stared at her with eyes brimming with anguish, his heart shattering under the weight of her betrayal. Tears streamed down his face as he covered it with his hands, silently weeping for the love he had lost and the cruelty he had endured. The sting of Sarah's words cut deeply, making him question everything he had believed about Maria's love. How could she have turned against him so coldly after all the promises of affection and care? The betrayal was almost too much to bear. Frozen by his pain, Alonso struggled to move, his legs feeling like lead. With a heavy heart, he staggered away, never daring to look back. Fortuitously for Maria, she was required to stay late at the hospital due to a critical case. A 5-year-old boy with severe burns needed immediate attention. As she prepared to remain on duty through the night, Maria called home to inform her mother that she would be delayed by a full 24 hours. Unbeknownst to her, her mother took the news as a golden opportunity. Sarah, already eager to see Alonso gone, rubbed her hands together in satisfaction, envisioning the drifter's departure within that time frame. Alonso, torn between his desire to confront Maria and his growing sense of pride, wrestled with his decision. Ultimately, he resolved to leave, convinced that his presence was an unwelcome burden. "I'm not going to impose myself or cause more trouble," he thought. "Let them live as they wish. I'm nothing but a wanderer to them." When Maria finally returned home, her heart sank as she discovered Alonso was nowhere to be found. Her immediate reaction was a mix of fury and heartbreak. Confronting her mother, she cried out, "Mom, what have you done? I've fought so hard for this. Why are you doing this to me? I love Alonso. Do you understand that? Where am I supposed to find him now?" Sarah, defensive and unrepentant, tried to justify her actions with a dismissive tone. "Why are you so upset? You're in love now, but you'll get over it. Maybe after a few more tries, you'll find someone worthy. Stop bringing these people into our home." Her words only deepened Maria's despair. The emotional chasm between them widened, and Maria felt the weight of her mother's relentless disapproval and interference pressing down on her. In her heart, she knew that Alonso's absence was a devastating loss, and the fight to reclaim him was now an urgent, heart-wrenching mission. Maria stood paralyzed, the realization crashing over her like a tidal wave. Alonso couldn't have just vanished into thin air, not after everything. Desperation clawed at her insides. Where could he be? The pain of not knowing gnawed at her, driving her to frantic action. She turned sharply at the gate and sprinted toward the alley where she had first encountered Alonso, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. She approached the beggars and street vendors with frantic urgency, pleading for any hint of Alonso's whereabouts. Their vacant shrugs and indifferent stares were like daggers to her heart. He hadn't been seen for some time. Maria wandered through the dimly lit streets, her mind a chaotic swirl of fear and regret. She searched for over an hour, weaving through the fog of her emotions, but Alonso was nowhere to be found. The city felt like a labyrinth, its familiar corners now alien and hostile. She felt a crushing weight of sorrow. Why had he left? Why hadn't he stayed to resolve things? His declarations of love now felt like cruel taunts. Had she been a fool to believe in the sincerity of his feelings? The doubts clawed at her, making her question her very worth. The bitter truth seemed to echo in the emptiness around her. Perhaps her mother's harsh words held some truth. Was she truly so flawed and insignificant? The rain fell relentlessly, drenching her to the bone, and the wind howled through the skeletal branches of the trees, tearing away the last vestiges of autumn. Maria trudged through the storm, oblivious to the cold and the chaos around her. The storm mirrored the turmoil within her. Each drop of rain felt like a tear from the heavens, each gust of wind a whisper of her shattered dreams. She was left feeling utterly bereft and abandoned. Could love be nothing more than a cruel illusion that only led to heartbreak? Maria's grief spiraled into physical suffering. The weeks that followed were a blur of sickness and despair. She fell prey to a relentless fever that ravaged her body, leaving her bedridden and weak. For 3 weeks, she battled with the high fever, her body shivering uncontrollably, her soul crying out for Alonso. Her delirium was haunted by visions of him, and in her fevered dreams, she reached out for him, desperate to feel his presence again. As Maria retreated further into herself, her days became robotic and her nights a labyrinth of tears. At home, she locked herself away, her sobs a constant, aching soundtrack to her solitude. She refused food, her appetite lost to the depths of her sorrow, and her body grew gaunt and fragile. Her emotional and physical health deteriorated rapidly. After a month, her condition worsened to the point of vomiting uncontrollably. As a medical professional, Maria recognized the signs she was pregnant. The realization hit her like a sledgehammer, leaving her breathless with terror and despair. The father of her child was a homeless man who had vanished without a trace, leaving her alone with a future that seemed both bleak and insurmountable. Her mother's disdain and the prospect of revealing the pregnancy filled her with dread. If Sarah discovered the truth, Maria knew the consequences would be devastating. She felt trapped in an inescapable nightmare, her mind a relentless barrage of questions and fears. How could she face the world with this new burden? How could she endure the judgment and the pain? Each day seemed to stretch endlessly before her, a grim reminder of her isolation and despair. The questions loomed large, overshadowing any glimmer of hope. What was she to do now? How could she continue to live with such overwhelming uncertainty and sorrow? Maria felt a heavy burden settle on her shoulders each morning and evening as she returned to the crossing where she had first met Alonso. Each time, her heart leaped with hope, only to be dashed when she realized the person she'd seen was a stranger. The days blurred together in a haze of desperation. She even called out to a man she believed was Alonso, only to be met with confusion and a painful reminder of her loss. In her despair, Maria contemplated a drastic decision. The thought of ending her pregnancy seemed like a way to escape her overwhelming problems, to vanish from the chaos and pain she faced daily. But as she prepared to take that irreversible step, a wave of anguish washed over her. The baby she carried was a living piece of Alonso, a testament to the love she had felt and the future she had hoped for. The realization that she would be ending a life that was so intrinsically linked to her own shattered her resolve. In a moment of clarity, Maria recognized that this child could be the only tangible connection to Alonso she would ever have. How could she face the emptiness of her life, knowing she had taken away the last vestige of him? The thought of living with that decision, of facing a future without the chance to cherish the child they had created together, was unbearable. She decided to keep the baby, no matter how daunting the path ahead seemed. The decision was made: she would face the challenges and raise her child against all odds. Maria abruptly left the gynecologist's office, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The doctor, momentarily stunned, watched her leave and then sighed with relief, having been spared from a difficult procedure. Returning home, Maria was greeted by the smell of fried fish. Her stomach churned at the scent, and she barely made it to the bathroom before she was overwhelmed by nausea. She spent half an hour bent over the toilet, her body rebelling against her. Her mother, hearing the commotion, was filled with concern. "Daughter, are you sick? Open the door." "It's not what I think, is it?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. Exhausted and weak, Maria finally emerged from the bathroom. Her mother's eyes were filled with a mix of reproach and suspicion, waiting for an explanation. Maria knew she had to face her mother's judgment and explain her choices, but the weight of her decisions and the future she now faced felt like an insurmountable challenge. The road ahead was uncertain and fraught with difficulty, but Maria was determined to move forward, clinging to the hope that her love for Alonso and her unborn child would give her the strength she needed to persevere. "Yes, Mom, I'm pregnant. It's Alonso's child, and you drove him away. Now your grandson will never know his father. I hope you're satisfied with your actions. You don't need to contribute anything or even acknowledge this. Just leave me alone, I need to rest." Maria's voice trembled as she spoke, and then she ran to her bedroom, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air. Sarah stood in stunned silence, her mind racing with regret and frustration. She had hoped to live out her old age in peace, not dealing with the chaos her daughter's decision had wrought. Now, faced with the reality of raising a grandson without a father, she felt her hopes for tranquility slipping away. The idea of creating more poverty and hardship was crushing, and she berated herself for the harsh decision that had led them here. The days that followed were filled with a strained silence between Maria and her mother. Maria retreated to her room, seeking solace in isolation. When the burden of her emotions became too heavy, she would gently caress her growing belly, whispering lullabies and speaking softly to the baby. These small acts of tenderness helped her find a semblance of peace, even as her heart ached. Sarah couldn't shake the guilt she felt for lying about Alonso and driving him away. The realization of what she had lost a man who had shown genuine love and potential to be a good husband and father haunted her. The embarrassment of having her daughter pregnant by a beggar and the fear of societal judgment weighed heavily on her. Yet amidst the harshness, Maria found a rare source of kindness in her gynecologist, Dr. Ramon Rice. He was a beacon of compassion in her turbulent world. When Maria would break down in his office, overwhelmed by the cruelty of her peers and the weight of her situation, he would offer gentle encouragement and support. "Hey, let's have some tea with chocolate, okay," he would say, closing the door to ensure privacy. "I always keep some for moments like this. Maria, I know you're going through a tough time, and it's natural to feel overwhelmed. Your emotions are heightened right now because of the hormones, and that's okay. Try to take more walks and talk to your baby. He hears and feels everything. When you're upset, he feels it too. When you're happy, it brings him comfort. Remember, once he's born, these current problems will seem less significant. You'll find joy in motherhood, and the rest will fade in comparison. If you ever need help or have nowhere to go, I'm here for you." Dr. Rice's words were a soothing balm to Maria's wounded spirit. His support provided a glimmer of hope and reassurance in a time of overwhelming despair. For the first time in a long while, Maria allowed herself to believe that there might be a path forward, despite the difficulties she faced. "You can call me, I'll help you with whatever you need. Here's my phone number," Dr. Ramon Rice had told Maria. His offer of support was a lifeline in her darkest moments. After each visit to his office, Maria felt a flicker of hope, but the days stretched on, and the memory of Alonso lingered like a shadow over her life. Every moment, day and night, Alonso's absence was a constant ache. Despite her anger and betrayal, Maria's heart still yearned for him. His touch, his kisses, and his smile haunted her thoughts. Forget him, she would scold herself. He's gone and doesn't care. If he loved you, he'd be here by now. You've been crying for months. What did you expect? She had found him at that pedestrian crossing, held his hand, and now had to face the consequences. Admit it, she told herself, you're a single mother now. So what? Many of us are single. My mother raised me alone, and I managed. Sarah, her mother, knew that no apology or revelation could mend the rift she had created. She was exhausted by the constant tension and regret. Maria had grown silent, withdrawing from any attempts at reconciliation or conversation. If Sarah tried to speak, Maria would retreat to her room or leave the house altogether. Sarah's guilt and sorrow were overwhelming. My God, how can I bridge the gap with my daughter? How can I ask for her forgiveness? She felt paralyzed by her remorse and the disintegration of their relationship. She longed to hold her daughter, to kiss her forehead, to assure her that she was no longer angry and would be there to support her. One day, driven by desperation to distract herself from her pain, Maria decided to clean her room. She was washing the curtains and scrubbing the windows when Sarah, driven by a mix of fear and urgency, saw her daughter's figure through the window. For a fleeting moment, she thought Maria was attempting something drastic, even though they were on the 5th floor. Without thinking, Sarah rushed into the room, her heart racing. She yanked Maria away from the window, pulling her into a tight embrace. Tears streamed down her face as she clung to her daughter, her voice choked with emotion. Maria, dear, don't do that. Don't jump, I beg you. Forgive me. I'm an old fool. It's my fault Alonso left. I told him you had a boyfriend, that you were only with him for fun. I thought I was doing what was best, but seeing you suffer like this, I realize what I've done. I've left my grandson without a father. Sarah's confession and plea were raw and heartfelt. For the first time, Maria saw the depth of her mother's regret and the real impact of her actions. The walls between them began to crumble as the shared pain and honesty created a fragile bridge toward healing. I'm not mad at you. I love you. It's okay, we'll raise your baby together. Don't do this. If you want me to help you find Alonso, I'll do it for you. Maria stared at her mother, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she replied, Mom, what are you doing? I wasn't going to jump. I was just cleaning the windows. But I'm glad you confessed and finally told the truth. You know, at first I hated you, and I had reasons to. But then I realized that if Alonso truly loved me as much as I loved him, he would have found a way to see me, talk to me, and make things right. Since he chose to leave quietly, I hope he's okay. So, don't punish yourself. Thanks for the support. At least now I'll have a little peace at home. For the first time in a long while, Maria and Sarah embraced, their tears mixing in a poignant release of all the hurt and misunderstanding. It was a moment of shared relief, the heavy cloud of resentment lifting from both of them. Sarah went to make tea, a small but meaningful gesture of care, as they began to talk more openly. They laughed together about old memories, including the quirky detail of Sarah chewing chalk when she was pregnant with Maria. The air in the house began to feel lighter, filled with the warmth of reconciliation. As Maria prepared for the arrival of her baby, she was touched to see her mother working with renewed energy and purpose. Sarah had pulled out an old sewing machine from her youth, and over a week had made diapers, dresses, and hats with loving attention to detail. When Maria came home from work and saw the small, lovingly crafted vest, she was overwhelmed. She held it in her hands, tears filling her eyes. Mom, thank you. It's so beautiful. The baby will be as small as a doll. I can't believe it. Sarah smiled, her eyes also misty with emotion. Yes, daughter, we'll take turns at night. We can get a second-hand stroller and crib, just look online. You'll have enough maternity leave at first, and then maybe I can stay with my grandson while you find a part-time job or go back to work. Don't worry, we'll manage. Maria felt a profound sense of relief and gratitude. With her mother's support, she felt she could face the challenges ahead with a renewed sense of hope. She now had someone to share her worries with, someone who understood her struggles and offered her unconditional support. Together, they began to rebuild their relationship, ready to face the future with a sense of unity and shared purpose. As the sun dipped below the horizon and evening shadows lengthened, Maria was enveloped by an overwhelming sense of melancholy. Her days had become a monotonous cycle of heartache and introspection, and as the darkness of night approached, her sorrow deepened. Tears flowed freely from her eyes, and her chest tightened with an ache that seemed to pierce through her very soul. The memories of Alonso, tender and bittersweet, haunted her relentlessly. She could still feel the warmth of his embrace, the way he would hold her close on the sofa as they watched their favorite police dramas together, their laughter and whispered promises filling the air. She longed for those moments, wishing for the comfort of his touch and the soothing cadence of his voice. "Where are you now?" she would ask herself, her heart aching with unanswered questions. "Maybe you're wandering the world, having completely forgotten me. How could you do this? I believed in you. And now you'll never know about the child we're going to have." These thoughts gnawed at her, a relentless torment that seemed to tear her apart from within. The absence of Alonso felt like a gaping chasm in her life, one that she couldn't fill or ignore. Despite her inner turmoil, Maria had managed to carry on with her daily life, though it was becoming increasingly difficult. Her work at the hospital, once a source of solace, had become a battleground of distraction and despair. Every day she fought to maintain her composure, but her mind was often lost in a fog of regret and longing. The head nurse's scoldings were becoming a constant backdrop to her workday, a reminder of how far she had strayed from her former self. "What's wrong with you?" the nurse would chide. "Control yourself. If you're already this unfocused, how will you manage once the baby is born? You need to pull yourself together." That evening, as Maria returned home, her heart was heavy with the familiar burden of sadness. She noticed a convoy of several sleek, black limousines parked conspicuously in front of their modest house. The sight of these luxurious vehicles, so out of place in their neighborhood, struck her as both intriguing and perplexing. Her mother, Sarah, who was tending to the strawberry flowers in their garden, was equally astonished. "Look at this, Maria," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Important people have arrived. I've only ever seen cars like that in movies. Who could they be? I don't think any wealthy people live around here." Maria, her curiosity piqued, was about to dismiss it when the doorbell rang. Sarah, still baffled by the sight, went to answer it. To her astonishment, she found 3 security guards and a well-dressed young man standing at the threshold. The young man exuded an air of confidence and authority, and his smile was both reassuring and enigmatic. "Good afternoon, Sarah," he said warmly. "Is Maria here? May I come in?" The unexpected nature of the visit left Sarah stunned, and she hesitated for a moment before opening the door wider. As the distinguished guests entered the house, Maria stood in the hallway, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The visitors seemed to bring with them an aura of mystery and promise, stirring a sense of hope and apprehension within her. The young man, noticing Maria's puzzled expression, approached her with a gentle but authoritative demeanor. "Maria," he said, his voice smooth and reassuring, "I'm here on behalf of someone who wants to speak with you. We have some important news, and I believe it's something you've been waiting for." Maria's mind raced, and 1,000 questions swirled through her head. Who could be behind this unexpected visit? What news could be so significant that it required a convoy of luxury vehicles and a team of security guards? Sarah, sensing her daughter's growing agitation, reached out to support her. "Maria, dear," she said softly, "let's see what they have to say. Maybe this is the change we've been hoping for." With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, Maria followed the young man and his entourage into the living room, where they settled into comfortable chairs. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of urgency and importance, and Maria could barely contain her anxiety. The young man cleared his throat and began, "Maria, I represent a charitable foundation that has been following your story. We were deeply moved by the situation you've been through, and we wanted to offer our support. There are some resources and assistance that we believe could make a significant difference in your life and the life of your child." As the young man spoke, Maria's eyes widened in disbelief. The reality of the situation began to sink in, and she struggled to process the unexpected turn of events. The prospect of receiving help and support felt like a glimmer of hope amid her ongoing struggles. Sarah, who had been silently observing, felt a surge of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "We've been through so much, and this means more than you can imagine." The young man nodded, his expression softening. "We understand that this is a challenging time for you. Our goal is to provide support and assistance in any way we can. If there's anything specific you need, please let us know. We're here to help." As Maria and Sarah absorbed the news, they felt a renewed sense of hope and optimism. The arrival of these unexpected visitors had brought with it the promise of change and support, and for the first time in a long while, Maria felt a flicker of possibility. In the days that followed, the support from the foundation proved to be a lifeline for Maria and her mother. With their assistance, they were able to secure essential resources and make preparations for the arrival of Maria's baby. The sense of community and care provided by the foundation helped to ease some of the burdens they had been carrying. Maria continued to grapple with her feelings for Alonso, but the presence of the foundation and the renewed bond with her mother offered her a measure of comfort and stability. As she prepared to welcome her child into the world, she found solace in the knowledge that she was not alone and that there was hope for a brighter future. The unexpected turn of events had not only brought practical assistance, but also a renewed sense of purpose and resilience. Maria faced the challenges ahead with a newfound strength, supported by the compassion of those who had reached out to help her in her time of need. As the visitors made their way into the modest living room, Maria, still reeling from the bewildering appearance of the limousines, emerged to meet them. The sight of the elegant young man made her heart skip a beat. He was impeccably dressed, exuding an air of sophistication that was in stark contrast to her troubled state. The moment their eyes met, the young man's face lit up with an intense, emotional relief. Without hesitation, he rushed towards Maria, wrapping her in a fervent embrace. "Hello, my love," he said, his voice trembling with excitement and emotion. "I'm here. Are you okay? I've come back." Maria, however, was taken aback. Her mind raced with a storm of conflicting emotions: anger, confusion, and disbelief. She pushed him away, her voice ringing out with a mixture of frustration and hurt. "Alonso, why did you suddenly decide to come back, believing what my mother said without even bothering to talk to me in person to find out if it was true or not? Where have you been all this time? On the moon? Why did you never tell me about yourself? And that limousine, was that just a facade? Or were you pretending to be a beggar? Who are you?" The young man's face fell, a shadow of sadness crossing his features. He took a seat on the sofa, his shoulders slumped in resignation. With a deep sigh, he gestured for his bodyguards to leave the room, creating a private space for the conversation that was about to unfold. "Please don't shout," he said softly, his voice laced with regret. "I know you have every right to be upset. Please just listen to everything I have to say." Maria, her breath coming in ragged bursts, nodded curtly, bracing herself for whatever revelations were to come. Alonso took a deep breath, searching for the right words to explain his long absence and the complexities of his situation. "Yes, you're right," Alonso began, his tone somber. "I'm not a beggar. I'm the son of a very wealthy man. Maybe you've heard of him. He's known for his curly hair and his vast business empire. We own 2 major airlines operating internationally. I was raised in luxury and attended an elite school. Later, I graduated in economics from a prestigious university in England. I had everything I could ever want, a life that seemed perfect and filled with endless possibilities. I was living in a world of rose-colored glasses, believing that nothing could ever go wrong. He paused, his eyes reflecting a profound sadness. Then, out of nowhere, my world was shattered. My mother, despite taking excellent care of herself, having regular checkups at top clinics, and leading an otherwise healthy lifestyle, was tragically killed. She was struck by a drunk driver while getting out of her car. It was a terrible blow to our family, and I remember the funeral as a blur. At first, I didn't feel much, just numbness. My father was devastated, and in our shared grief, we clung to each other for support. Alonso's voice wavered as he continued. But then my father made a decision that changed everything. Just 6 months after my mother's death, he brought home a woman named Sophia, a stepmother I had no desire to accept. From the moment she arrived, there was friction. She invaded our space. Going through my mother's personal belongings, and even taking photos of things I had specifically asked her to leave untouched. It was an awful scandal. I felt betrayed and angry, unable to reconcile my loss with her presence in our lives. Maria listened, her emotions a tumultuous mix of anger and sympathy. Alonso's story revealed the depth of his turmoil, and though it didn't excuse his absence, it offered a glimpse into the complexities of his life. Her heart ached as she tried to understand the full scope of his experiences and the pain he had endured. "Alonso," Maria said, her voice softening despite the lingering edge of her frustration, "I understand that you've been through a lot. I can see now that there were reasons for your absence, but you should have reached out to me. I needed you. And your sudden return without an explanation left me feeling abandoned and hurt." Alonso nodded, his expression one of profound remorse. "I'm deeply sorry for not being there for you. I didn't know how to reach out or what to say. I've been trying to rebuild my life and deal with my grief, but I should have been honest with you. I realize now how much I've hurt you, and for that, I am truly sorry." The weight of their shared history and Alonso's revelation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. Maria took a deep breath, trying to reconcile her feelings and find a path forward. Despite the pain and confusion, she knew that understanding each other's perspectives was the first step towards healing. With a weary sigh, Maria looked at Alonso and said, "Let's talk more about this. We have a lot to work through, but I need to understand everything before I can decide what's next for us." As they continued their conversation, the once turbulent atmosphere began to shift, making way for a tentative understanding. Maria and Alonso faced the complexities of their relationship with a renewed sense of honesty and openness. The arrival of Alonso and his revelation marked the beginning of a new chapter, filled with the possibility of reconciliation and a shared future, albeit uncertain and fraught with challenges. Alonso's face showed a mix of shock and confusion as Maria's words sank in. He looked at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Pregnant? I don't understand." "Pregnant by whom?" he stammered, struggling to process the news. Maria's expression remained firm, though her heart was pounding. "By my supposed fiancé, the one you were told I was having fun with. The man you believed was a part of my life and had no real significance." Alonso's shock deepened, and he sank into the sofa, trying to come to terms with the implications of her revelation. "But why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice tinged with desperation. "Why didn't you reach out to me?" Maria's gaze softened, but her resolve remained unshaken. "I tried, Alonso. I tried to get in touch, but I never knew where you were or how to find you. I was left to deal with everything on my own. Your sudden reappearance, your grand gestures, and your explanations don't change the fact that I've been carrying this burden alone." She paused, letting her words settle between them. "My mother is ill, and I can't leave her behind. She's been my rock through all of this. And I'm not about to uproot my life and move to the capital while she needs support." As for the baby, it's a huge responsibility. I need to focus on my family and the future of my child." Alonso's eyes were filled with regret as he looked at Maria. "I didn't know about your fiancé or the baby. I wish I had known. Maybe I would have acted differently and reached out sooner. I'm so sorry for everything." Maria nodded, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. "It's too late for apologies now. Actions speak louder than words, Alonso. If you truly care, you need to understand that I have commitments here, and I can't just drop everything and follow you." Alonso's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'll respect your decision. I just wanted to come back and make things right, but I see now that there's a lot more to consider." The room was filled with a heavy silence as both Maria and Alonso grappled with the weight of their situation. Maria's heart ached as she faced the reality of her choices and the complexities of her life, while Alonso struggled to reconcile his past actions with the present circumstances. After a long moment, Maria spoke again, her voice softer but resolute. "Thank you for coming and explaining everything, Alonso. It means something to know you were thinking of me, but right now my focus has to be on my mother and my baby. Perhaps in the future, when things are more settled, we can find a way to move forward, but for now, I need to stay here and take care of what's important." Alonso nodded, his face a mask of sadness and acceptance. "I understand, Maria. I'll give you the space you need. I hope things work out for you and your family." With that, Alonso rose from the sofa, a look of resignation in his eyes. He thanked Maria's mother for her hospitality, though she had been a silent observer throughout their conversation, and prepared to leave. As he stepped outside and the sound of the luxury limousines faded into the distance, Maria felt a strange sense of closure. The past had come knocking, bringing with it a swirl of emotions and unresolved issues. But now, she could focus on her immediate responsibilities and the future she was building for herself and her child. Maria turned back into the house, feeling the weight of her decision, but also a sense of relief. She knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it with the support of her mother and the strength she had found within herself. The opulent surroundings of the Crespo mansion were overwhelming for Sara. The grand decor, the polished marble floors, and the high ceilings seemed to mock her simplicity and the dire situation she found herself in. As she was led to the office, she couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place, surrounded by a world of wealth and privilege that felt worlds apart from her own. Inside the office, Alvarez Crespo awaited her. He was a man of distinguished appearance, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that spoke of both authority and wealth. His demeanor was calm but guarded, a stark contrast to Sara's anxious state. The room was adorned with expensive art and high-end furniture, creating an atmosphere of opulence that only added to Sara's discomfort. Alvarez rose from his desk as she entered, his eyes assessing her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Ms. Sara, please have a seat," he said, motioning to a plush armchair opposite his desk. Sara sat down, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to gather her thoughts. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Crespo," Sara began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I'm here because of an important matter concerning Alonso and my daughter, Maria." Alvarez nodded, signaling for her to continue. "I'm listening. What's this matter?" Sara took a deep breath, her mind racing through the events that had led her to this moment. Maria and Alonso were deeply in love. "I know I made a mistake by interfering and saying things I shouldn't have. I planted doubts in Alonso's mind, and now I've come to ask for your help to make things right." Alvarez's expression remained inscrutable, but there was a glint of understanding in his eyes. "So you admit that your actions contributed to the situation between Alonso and Maria?" Sara nodded earnestly. "Yes, I do. I've come to realize how wrong I was. I've seen how much Maria has suffered since Alonso left, She's been devastated, and I've seen how my words and actions drove him away. I'm here to ask for your assistance in helping them reconcile." Alvarez leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "You've come a long way to get here, Sara. What exactly are you asking for?" Alonso's returned to Maria. "Yes," Sara replied, her voice filled with hope and desperation. "I want to set things right. Alonso needs to understand how much he hurt Maria and that she's not the person he was led to believe. She's pregnant and she needs him now more than ever. I know that I can't undo the past, but I hope that with your help, we can mend the broken pieces." Alvarez's gaze softened slightly. "I understand your intentions, Sara. Alonso's departure was indeed a result of misunderstandings and miscommunications. However, he's been through a lot, and his trust has been deeply shaken. Rebuilding that trust won't be easy." Sara's eyes filled with tears as she pleaded, "Please, Mr. Crespo. I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. My daughter is suffering, and her unborn child needs a father. If there's any way to make amends, I'm ready to cooperate fully." Alvarez sighed and glanced out of the window, his mind working through the implications of her request. "I'll consider what you've said. Alonso's return and reconciliation with Maria will require more than just words. It will need genuine understanding and willingness to address the pain and mistrust that exists." Sara nodded vigorously. "I understand. Whatever you think is necessary, I'm willing to do. Please, just help me find a way to bring them together." Alvarez stood up and extended his hand to Sara. "I'll see what I can do. I'll speak with Alonso and see if we can find a path forward. In the meantime, please stay here tonight. I'll arrange for accommodations for you and make sure you're taken care of." Sara shook his hand gratefully, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Crespo. I truly appreciate your help." As Sara left the office, her heart was a mix of hope and anxiety. The mansion that had initially seemed so alien now felt like a place where a sliver of possibility existed. She clung to the hope that Alvarez Crespo's intervention might help heal the rift between Alonso and Maria, and she was determined to do everything in her power to see her daughter's heart mended and her family whole once more. Alvarez Crespo's office was impeccably organized, filled with luxurious furnishings and framed awards that spoke to a life of success and authority. The burly man behind the counter, with his glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, exuded an air of both authority and weariness. His graying hair and the slight bulge at his midsection hinted at a life of comfort, though his eyes revealed a deeper empathy. When Sara entered, her demeanor was a mixture of resolve and nervousness. She had ventured into this world of opulence not for herself but for her daughter and the love she had unintentionally jeopardized. The man gestured for her to sit, his voice gruff but not unkind. What brings you here? Who did you say you were? I didn't catch the guard's words well." Sara took a deep breath and began, "My name is Sara. I'm Maria's mother. About 4 months ago, my daughter brought home a man from the street. He said he was her fiancé, named Alonso. Maria has always been a reserved girl, only having had one previous relationship a year ago. She's a dedicated nurse, and I was against this relationship from the start. I didn't think it was right for her to be involved with someone in such dire circumstances. And I let my prejudices and fears get the best of me. I made up stories to try to end their relationship. Now Alonso has doubts about Maria, and it's tearing them apart. We don't want anything from you. We can manage the child ourselves. I just want to apologize to Alonso and clear up the lies I told. Maria has never been with anyone else. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused. Please, you could let Alonso know and arrange for me to be taken back home? I don't want Maria to know I came here. It will only worry her." The man behind the counter listened intently, his expression softening as Sara spoke. He removed his glasses and sighed, a look of contemplation on his face. "Well, that's quite the situation. It seems I'll be a grandfather soon. Alonso has been so distant lately, now it all makes sense. Don't worry, I'll speak with him. The driver will take you home in a comfortable car. It'll be a quick trip, just about an hour." Sarah's face relaxed into a grateful smile. "Thank you for your understanding and for arranging this. I'm relieved to have made things right, even if it's just a small step." The man gave a nod of reassurance. "It's important to clear the air. I'll ensure Alonso knows the truth. We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to acknowledge them and seek to make amends." Sarah left the Crespo mansion with a sense of closure. The ride home was serene, and she found solace in the fact that she had done all she could to mend the rift she had caused. Her conscience was lighter, knowing she had taken responsibility for her actions and made a sincere effort to repair the damage. Back at home, the atmosphere was still filled with the lingering sadness of the unresolved conflict. Maria was alone, her heart heavy with the absence of Alonso and the uncertainty surrounding their future. Her days were filled with a mix of longing and regret, each moment a painful reminder of the love she had fought so hard to hold on to. Alonso, meanwhile, was exhausted from his demanding day at work. As he arrived home, he was ready to collapse onto his bed. But his father was waiting for him in the hallway, a look of determined seriousness on his face. "Alonso, we need to talk," Alvarez Crespo said, his voice carrying a tone that brooked no argument. "It's about Maria and everything that's been going on." Alonso looked at his father, weary but attentive. "What's this about, father?" Alvarez's gaze was steady, his words measured. "I spoke with Sarah today. She came here to apologize for the trouble she caused between you and Maria. She admitted to lying and interfering out of fear for her daughter's future. She wants to make things right." The news hit Alonso like a wave, washing over the doubts and frustrations he had been harboring. His father continued, "Sarah is genuinely remorseful. She wanted to clear the air and hopes that you can reconcile with Maria. It's important to understand that her intentions, though misguided, were driven by concern." Alonso took in his father's words, feeling a mix of relief and lingering confusion. The path forward was still unclear, but the knowledge that Sarah had come to set things right provided a glimmer of hope. "I need some time to process this," Alonso said quietly, "but I appreciate you letting me know." Alvarez nodded. "Take the time you need. The important thing is that you know the truth now. We'll work through this together." As Alonso retired to his room, his mind was a whirlpool of thoughts and emotions. The road to reconciliation would be challenging, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of possibility. The love he once had with Maria was not beyond repair, and with a clearer understanding, perhaps they could find their way back to each other. Alonso's father led him into the study, his expression grave and unyielding. The room, usually a sanctuary of comfort and control, now felt like a chamber of judgment. As the door clicked shut behind him, Alonso's anxiety grew. His father, Alvarez Crespo, wasted no time with pleasantries. "What's going on, Alonso? Do you think my son is a scoundrel?" And I don't know it, his voice was heavy with a mix of disappointment and disbelief. Alonso was taken aback. "What do you mean, Dad? What have I done? The company is running smoothly. The contracts are in order. I don't see the issue." Alvarez's gaze hardened. "Perhaps you know an old woman named Sarah. She came here today, distraught and begging for your forgiveness. She claimed that you got her daughter pregnant. What does that mean?" "Oh yes, it's true. Why are you hiding from the truth? What kind of man are you?" The accusation struck Alonso like a blow. He sank into a nearby chair, his face a mask of confusion and distress. "I don't know what to do, Dad. You know Maria, she's kind and compassionate. She took me in when I was at my lowest. Without her, I might have perished in the subway." But her mother is a different story. She constantly belittled me and said I wasn't good enough for Maria. She even kicked me out and claimed that Maria was with me just for fun and had a fiancé. I was furious and hurt. When I finally went to confront Maria, hoping to resolve things, she didn't embrace me as I'd hoped. Instead, she hit me. I don't understand why. Alvarez's expression grew even more severe. He shook his head, his frustration palpable. "Oh, Alonso, how naive you are. I'd like to punch you in the face right now, too. How could you believe such things without verifying them first? Did you ever stop to consider that Sarah might have been speaking out of bitterness and confusion?" Alonso's eyes widened, but I thought. His father cut him off sharply. "You thought. You let your emotions and assumptions guide your actions. It's time to stop being impulsive and start thinking clearly. Sarah's visit might have been a result of her regrets, and now she's trying to make amends. You need to reconsider your actions and how they've affected Maria." Alonso sat in silence, grappling with the weight of his father's words. The realization that he had acted rashly, driven by anger and hurt, began to sink in. He had allowed his pride and misconceptions to cloud his judgment, leading to a series of painful misunderstandings. Alvarez continued, his tone softening slightly. "Son, you have to understand the gravity of the situation. Maria is carrying your child. Whether you believe it or not, that makes her a part of your life, and you need to step up and take responsibility. You can't keep running away from your problems." Alonso's face turned pale as the full impact of his father's words settled in. "What should I do?" Alvarez placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "Start by finding Maria. Apologize for your mistakes and misunderstandings. Make things right. Show her that you're committed and ready to face the future together. This is your chance to prove that you're more than just a reactionary. Be a man of integrity and resolve." The conversation left Alonso with a profound sense of clarity. His father's words were harsh but necessary, catalyzing for him to confront his mistakes and take responsibility for his actions. As he left the study, he knew he had a difficult road ahead, but for the first time he felt a sense of purpose and determination to make amends and rebuild his relationship with Maria. Alvarez Crespo's words hit Alonso with a jarring clarity. "You were expecting Maria to have used your status to her advantage, weren't you? To pretend to be perfect just to stay close to you. But what did she do? She slapped you in the face and threw you out. That tells you something important. It tells you that Maria doesn't care about your money or your status. What matters to her is the truth. She wasn't afraid to. Bring a beggar into her home, defy her mother, and fall in love. That's genuine, and yet you let doubts creep in." Alonso was struck silent by his father's insight. "Dad, you're right. I hadn't considered it from that perspective. I've been so wrapped up in my own emotions, anger, jealousy, and confusion that I didn't see the truth. I'm so in love with Maria. Since meeting her, no one else even comes to mind. I can't imagine my life without her. What do I do now? I'm afraid she won't forgive me." Alvarez's face softened into a reassuring smile. "You're a fool if you think she won't forgive you. Your mother says Maria cries day and night, refuses to see anyone, and is heartbroken over this. If you reach out to her sincerely from the heart, she won't turn you away. Talk to her. Offer her your love and commitment. No woman would reject such a heartfelt gesture. Do you want to deny your father the joy of his grandchild?" Determined to make things right, Alonso quickly made plans. He bought a lavish bouquet of pale scarlet roses, the very kind Maria had once dreamed of, and rushed back to her home, hoping to make amends. When he arrived, he hesitated only for a moment before ringing the doorbell. Maria's mother, Sarah, answered the door, her face showing signs of exhaustion and distress. "Hello, Alonso. Maria isn't here right now." Alonso's heart sank, but he steeled himself. "Hello, Mrs. Sarah. I need to talk to her. It's urgent." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. "Oh, Alonso," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm afraid Maria is not well. She's been in a lot of distress. We were just about to call for an ambulance." Alonso's heart raced. What's happened? Where is she? She's been suffering from severe stress and anxiety. We were on our way to the hospital, Sarah explained, her voice breaking. Without hesitation, Alonso offered to accompany them. Together, they rushed to the hospital. The urgency of the situation only heightened Alonso's resolve. He needed to speak to Maria, to show her that his feelings were genuine and that he was committed to their future together. At the hospital, Alonso found Maria in a small, dimly lit room, lying on a bed, her face pale and drawn. Seeing her like this, the weight of his actions bore down on him. He approached her with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Maria," he said softly, holding out the bouquet of roses. "I'm so sorry. I've been a fool, blinded by my doubts and pride. I love you more than anything, and I've realized how much I've hurt you. Please let me make things right. I want to be with you, to support you and our child. Can you forgive me?" Maria's tear-streaked face looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of pain and longing. For a moment, the silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken emotions. But as Alonso stood there, vulnerable and earnest, Maria's heart softened. Slowly, she reached out and took the roses from his hands. "Alonso," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've missed you so much. I was so hurt and so confused. I don't know if I can forgive you completely, but I want to try." Alonso felt a surge of relief and hope. He moved closer, gently taking her hand. "Thank you, Maria. I promise I'll do everything I can to make up for my mistakes. We'll get through this together, I swear." As they held each other, the tension and heartbreak that had plagued their relationship began to dissolve. For the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of reconciliation. Alonso and Maria were on the path to healing, with the support of both their families and their unwavering love guiding them forward. Half an hour later, Maria's condition worsened. She began experiencing severe stomach pain and bleeding. Sarah, lying in bed, anxiously worried, "Oh God, let it not be a miscarriage. She's been under so much stress lately. I wanted to go with her, but the doctor said it would raise my blood pressure. I'll see her in the morning. I hope she's okay. If not, I'll never forgive myself." Alonso's face turned ashen when he heard Sarah's distress. "It's my fault," he muttered, panic-stricken. "Take me to the hospital. Quickly, give me the address." The driver sped through the dark streets, Alonso's mind racing with fear. When he burst into the emergency room, the nurses recognized him instantly. "It's not every day we have a visit from Mr. Crespo's son," they murmured, their surprise evident. Alonso nearly shouted, "Where is Maria Hernandez? What's happening? Where's the on-duty doctor? She's my fiancée." His desperation was palpable, and the staff scrambled to calm him. A weary, elderly doctor emerged from the waiting room, his expression stern. "What are you doing here? This isn't a circus. I know where Maria is. She's in room C and her condition is critical. She's bleeding heavily. We're doing everything possible. Are you the baby's father? If so, you could donate blood. It would be a great help." Alonso, determined, nodded fervently. "Yes, I'll do anything. Just make sure Maria and the baby are okay. I'll pay for any medication, the best available. Please, let me see her for a moment. I need to tell her something that will make everything better. I promise." The doctor, moved by Alonso's anguish, relented. "All right, but only for a few minutes. I'll be waiting for you." Alonso entered the room quietly. Maria lay there, pale and frightened, barely visible under the blanket. Medical staff were busy around her, administering treatment. Alonso approached her, kneeling beside the bed. His voice was a gentle whisper. "Hello, my love. I've been such a fool. I love you more than my life. Please don't speak. Save your strength for our baby. Let me touch your belly." He placed his hand tenderly on her abdomen, caressing it softly. "Our baby, it's me, your father. Don't be demanding. Your mother and I love you and are waiting for you. Be strong and healthy for us." A nurse signaled him to leave, and Alonso, overcome with emotion, kissed Maria's belly gently before stepping out. As he sat in the waiting room, something transformative occurred within him. Just hours before, he had felt like giving up, indifferent to what came next. Now, his heart was filled with warmth and hope. He felt an intense desire to live, to love, and to be there for his family. Alonso donated blood and spent the entire night on the waiting room sofa, eyes wide open, praying fervently, "Lord, take everything, my money, my company, my cars. Just let Maria and the baby recover. I'd rather suffer myself than have anything happen to them. I love them so much. Amen." The next morning, as the exhausted doctor prepared to leave, he touched Alonso's shoulder with a look of sympathy. "Alonso, your girlfriend is stable now. The bleeding has stopped, and the immediate threat of miscarriage has been managed. She'll need to stay for another week or two for observation. Take good care of her and avoid any stress. If you wish, you can pay for a private room with a TV." Alonso shook the doctor's hand gratefully. "Thank you for everything. I'm so relieved she and the baby are okay. Can I see her now?" The doctor, though stern, softened slightly. "Visiting hours are posted in the waiting room. Please adhere to them. Rules are the same for everyone, understand?" Alonso nodded, his heart full of relief and hope. He waited patiently, eager to be by Maria's side and support her through the recovery process. Alonso made sure Maria was as comfortable as possible in her private room, which was outfitted with all the amenities she needed, including a TV to help pass the time. Despite Maria's protests about being spoiled, Alonso made it a point to be by her side as much as he could. He would come in regularly to massage her, tenderly caress her growing belly, and ensure she had plenty of fruit, juices, and vitamins. His mother also contributed, bringing over homemade soups and steamed vegetables, which Maria devoured with a hearty appetite that surprised everyone. After Maria was discharged from the hospital, Alonso, against her wishes, took her to his family mansion. He wanted to ensure that she was well cared for and comfortable during her pregnancy. Alonso and his father also arranged for Sarah to be sent to a sanatorium for treatment, covering a month's stay to ensure her health was properly managed. For Sarah, this was a rare and cherished vacation, something she had never experienced before despite years of working tirelessly. The resort, located by the sea, offered breathtaking views and exceptional service. Sarah, now treated like royalty, took long walks, captured the stunning scenery in photographs, and sent them to her friends. Her friends, envious of her good fortune, buzzed with chatter about her newfound luxury, contrasting sharply with her earlier harsh judgments of Maria's relationship with Alonso. Maria took maternity leave from her nursing job and celebrated her last day with a farewell dinner at the hospital. She brought a spread of cake, juice, fruit, and champagne for her colleagues. The atmosphere was warm and supportive. No one mocked her anymore, and the gossip had died down. Maria, having endured so much, was now surrounded by kindness and good wishes from her peers. Outside the city, Maria reveled in the fresh, forest air. She enjoyed walks along shaded paths, relaxing on benches, and sleeping deeply. Her health improved noticeably. She looked more radiant, her cheeks were flushed, and her belly continued to grow, taking on the appearance of a large, round watermelon. Alonso, ever attentive, ensured every detail was perfect. He scheduled an appointment at the best clinic for the upcoming delivery and frequently checked in on Maria, concerned that the stress of her earlier experiences wouldn't resurface. Alonso's care and dedication were unwavering. He understood the importance of maintaining Maria's well-being and ensured she was surrounded by love and support. His commitment to her and their baby was evident in every action he took, from the thoughtful arrangements for her comfort to his vigilance in ensuring that no stress or anxiety threatened their happiness. Alonso's father, not one to sit idly by, quickly transformed the family home into a haven for the new arrivals. He arranged for new furniture and stocked up on baby supplies, creating a beautiful nursery. The entire setup was kept a secret from Maria and Alonso, a surprise to welcome their growing family. Sarah's recovery was remarkable. The clinic's doctors were astonished by her improved health, with one even joking, "Mrs. Hernandez, you could qualify for the Olympics." Maria, impressed, asked the name of the clinic to recommend it to her patients. As Maria went for her final ultrasound before the birth, she and Alonso received another shock. Dr. Ramirez greeted them with a knowing smile. "Maria, it looks like things are going well in your personal life. Is this your husband? He looks great." Maria blushed and nodded. "Yes, Alonso is the father of my baby. We're doing well." Dr. Ramirez's next words were a delightful surprise. "I have incredible news for you, young lady. Sit down just in case." "Alonso, have you been scared? Are you nervous? Is something wrong with the baby, doctor? Tell me, don't keep us in suspense." "It's twins, a boy and a girl." "Congratulations," Dr. Ramirez announced. Maria's mouth fell open, and Alonso's eyes widened in astonishment. The news brought them immense joy. Alonso's voice was filled with excitement. "I'm going to be a father twice. My children, my dear little ones." Several hours later, Dr. Ramirez emerged with more good news. "Congratulations, Maria and Alonso. Your twins are healthy and beautiful. Come see them." Maria's eyes sparkled with happiness as she and Alonso saw their healthy babies. Alonso was overjoyed. It felt like a double miracle, and their joy knew no bounds. After the twins were born, Alonso's life underwent a profound transformation. He devoted himself entirely to his family, setting aside work to be by Maria's side. He made sure they lacked for nothing, ensuring Maria's every need was met and showering their family with love and care. Despite the challenges, their life was filled with happiness. Maria's smile never faded, reflecting their contentment and the deep love they shared. Grateful for their blessings, Maria and Alonso thanked God daily for the precious gift of their children and their life together. They cherished each moment, recognizing that happiness and family were their greatest treasures. Their lives were a testament to the profound joy that comes from love, family, and gratitude. They lived a long, fulfilling life surrounded by their children and loved ones, always together, always loving each other, and always thankful for the happiness that graced their lives. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey through Alonso and Maria's story. Their journey from struggle to joy highlights the transformative power of love, family, and resilience. It's a beautiful reminder of how facing challenges with compassion and determination can lead to profound rewards and happiness. So, what have you learned from this story? How can these lessons inspire you in your own life? We'd love to hear from you. Share one thing you've learned and how you plan to put it into practice in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Your support helps us continue to bring you meaningful stories and valuable insights. Thanks for watching.